faces of watches and clocks with this glowing radium paint. And it was women who were specifically hired for this job because of their smaller hands and just delicate touch. And they were paid very well, at least 3 times as much as what other factory jobs were offering women at the time. So this was a very big deal, and it was a pretty sought after job. Sorry. But of course, the ladies, they had no idea that the radium paint that they were working with was completely toxic. Not just toxic, it was radioactive. So radium is a naturally occurring radioactive material that comes from the radioactive decay of uranium, and by itself it actually glows. So by combining radium with other ingredients to make that glow turn green and brighter, a glowing paint that was called Undark was created, and this was what they used to paint the watch faces and make them glow in the dark. And while these watches and clocks were super popular for the people back home, they were more popular for soldiers during World War I, so they would be able to see the time without a light. They were also really popular on instrument dials in war vehicles like tanks and ships as well. Now the numbers on these watches were so small that in order to paint with precision, these girls were taught a technique that was called lip pointing. And lip pointing ensured that the tips of the brushes that they were using remained very sharp, nice and sharp, to get nice precise lines. So these girls would literally put the tip of their brush between their lips to get a good point. They would then dip the brush into this radioactive powder. They would paint the dial of a watch and then repeat the whole process without getting rid of any of the remaining radium on the brush. And they actually remembered the process by saying lip, dip, and then paint. So every single time they put the brush in between their lips, they were ingesting radioactive material, and they did this hundreds of times a day for years and years, all while being reassured by their managers that the small amount of radium that they were ingesting was good for them. Let me repeat that. They were reassured by the people in charge that radium was good for them. So radium at the time, it was considered like this magical thing, and they were told that it was just completely safe to consume. So what happened from the consumption of this radioactive material? Let's go into it briefly because there's no way that we can skip over that. So radium and calcium have very similar chemical properties to one another. They are both found in the second column of the periodic table under the alkaline earth metal group. And all of the metals in this group have similar outer electron structure, which I'm sure most of you probably remember from high school chemistry, right? So all of these have very similar chemical and physical properties. This means that So uranium-238, which again Marie and Pierre were looking at, is unstable. And what they noticed was that when uranium was undergoing radioactive decay, in this process, it was creating something else that they noticed was noticeably more radioactive than its original form. And this was radium-226. And the radiation that they were picking up on, what you can detect, it's released in 3 common forms. And these forms are alpha, beta, and gamma rays, which I'm sure most of you have already heard of. So alpha radiation can't travel very far on its own, and it actually cannot penetrate intact skin. Like, it can literally be stopped by just our outer layer of skin, and it can't penetrate it into the body. Beta radiation can penetrate the skin, causing burns, but it can't penetrate through the entire body. Beta radiation can be stopped by clothing, but if you touch it with just bare skin, it will burn you. Now, gamma radiation can go through the body. Gamma rays are also the most hazardous to us because they penetrate the body unless you are wearing lead clothing or you're sheltering under several feet of concrete. So nuclear fallout shelters and stuff like that are created to save people from gamma radiation. But the one that we'll be talking about today, the radiation that caused all of the horrendous effects for the Radium girls, is actually alpha radiation, which I know was kind of weird to me ionizing paint with radium-226, and he called it Undark. And upon realizing how profitable this was going to be, they opened the factories where the tile painting would take place. And the first was opened in Orange, New Jersey in 1917. And this would, of course, be the paint that would go on to kill so many of the women who wanted radium. But also in saying that, I think a lot of companies actually did put radium in their products. There was like a tonic being sold at the time that was literally bottled water with radium in it. There were makeup companies putting radium in their products, claiming that it would make people's skin clearer and youthful and more beautiful. But there was a toothpaste that had radium in it, as well as cleaning products and a bunch of other stuff. There was a butter company that actually changed its name to Radium Butter. I love making toast at 3 o'clock in the morning with the lights turned off because I know that the radium from my butter will make my kitchen glow. Radium-laced products were the new trend. It's kind of like when cottage cheese ice cream became the new thing and went really viral, and then every single creator on the planet was suddenly coming out with a video or a short or a TikTok talking about how I've been making cottage cheese ice cream for years. No, you haven't. You're just jumping on the trend. Ugh, that's so cringe. I hate it. I'm gonna read you an actual advertisement for Undark paint at the time. Quote, "The power of radium at your disposal. 23 years ago, radium was unknown. Today, thanks to constant laboratory work, the power of this most unusual of elements is at your disposal. Through the medium of Undark, radium serves you safely and surely. Does Undark really contain radium? Most assuredly. It is radium combined with exactly the proper manner with zinc sulfide, which gives Undark its ability to shine continuously in the dark. Manufacturers have been quick to realize the value of Undark. They apply it to the dials of watches and clocks, to electric push buttons, to buckles of bedroom slippers, to house numbers, flashlights, compasses, gasoline gauges, odometers, and many other articles which you frequently wish to see in the dark. The next time you fumble for a lighting switch, plunk your shins on furniture, wondering what time it is because of the dark, remember, Undark. It shines in the dark." That's cringe. But yeah, because of the negligence and craze of this magical element, the girls in the factories thought ingesting it was good for them and that it would make them more beautiful, more youthful. How could something so popular be bad for them, right? There are actual records of them asking their supervisors, like, "You're sure that this lip pointing is completely harmless, right?" And every time the supervisors would say, "Of course." So they would go on not worrying about it. Every day at work, they dip their brushes into the radium, put it to their lips, ingest it, but they would also be inhaling it as well because the powder was like, it was a powder. That was dumb. It was a powder, so every time they dipped their brush, a little bit would go into the air. They would breathe it in. But it would also simply fall down on their skin and their clothing, and this made their skin actually glow in the dark. And this was where they got their nicknames of the Ghost Girls. And the studios where they painted radium. And then a second technique was brought in where the ladies could make their brushes pointed with a wet rag instead of lip pointing. But again, for some reason, this was wasting too much of the radium, so they took the rags away and asked them to continue lip pointing. So, the suspicion of phosphorus poisoning was important here because phosphorus poisoning actually had very similar symptoms to radium poisoning, including anemia, brittle bones, and decaying of the jawbone. Catherine and Irene worked as tile painters for about 3 years before moving on to different work. And in the spring of 1922, when Irene was only 20 years old, she started suffering from inflammation in her cheek, as well as having intense tooth pain. The poor girl went to a dentist, and he ended up removing the tooth that was giving her the most pain. But our dentist didn't understand what was going on here, because after he extracted the one tooth, the inflammation and the pain continued. But the crazy part was that the damage to her bone and gum, where he removed that tooth from, it never healed. It just got completely infected and it turned into an abscess. And then that pain started spreading to other teeth around her mouth. So he removed more of those teeth because the pain was excruciating. And once again, the holes were not healing, and the pain just continued for her, and he had to end up like cutting open other areas of her gums in order to drain infection. And this is where he discovered that her jawbone was literally rotting from the inside. Like, not only was her jawbone rotting, but she was also suffering from anemia at this point, and she was having trouble walking because all of her bones were affected. By the winter, Irene had to be admitted to the hospital for necrosis of her mouth, meaning her mouth tissues were actually dying, and her mouth was just full of these giant open sores that were infected and were not anywhere close to healing, and she was completely anemic. And it was in the hospital where Irene reported to doctors of another tile painter who was also suffering from similar symptoms to her. And it's likely that she was talking about a woman named Amelia Maggia, also known as Molly Maggia. So Amelia came from a large family, being one of 5 sisters who also all worked as tile painters. Amelia began working in the orange factory as well, and she was actually known for her incredibly fast painting skills. Like, she was known as, quote, an unusually productive worker who was able to paint more watches per day than most girls could. But her speed eventually slowed down because in 1921, just like Irene, Amelia straight out of a nightmare, because eventually Amelia's teeth that are left, they just start falling out of her mouth one by one on their own, and then her jawbone started disintegrating. So some doctors thought that she might be suffering from syphilis, but they really just had no clue whatsoever what was wrong with her. She goes to another dentist who believes that she might have Fossy jaw, but since Amelia wasn't working with phosphorus, white phosphorus, which was known to cause that kind of damage to the body, the dentist didn't know what to make of it. But this poor girl, she just kept getting worse. The holes in her mouth where the teeth had fallen out were just big, open wounds that were infected and were not healing. And the worst part was that she was losing portions of her mouth, and she was just left with these huge abscesses. She is in so much pain. It's not even comprehensible. It's not. But she goes back to the dentist, and her lower jawbone had become so deteriorated at that point that this dentist only had to gently apply a tiny little bit of pressure with his hands. And her jawbone started crumbling at his touch. And I don't know if you're ready for this. I hope you are. He actually lifted her entire jawbone out of her mouth. It just snapped right out when he lifted it. He removed her jawbone. This poor woman was literally disintegrating. This part of the case just gives me nightmares. Amelia passed away on September 12th, 1922, at the age of 24. And her cause of death is beyond horrendous. Like, you might want to skip ahead, actually. The necrosis, meaning the death of the cells, muscles, tissues, and bones in her mouth, it had gotten so bad that it was now eating away the top part of her jawbone, parts of her ear, and it was spreading into her neck. This poor girl died when the necrosis went through her jugular vein, causing her to bleed to death. And if you remember from the beginning of the video, I talked about how radium and calcium are taken up similarly in the body, and how the bones absorb radium. So Amelia's mouth and jaw bones had just been completely decimated from the inside by the alpha radiation particles. But her official cause of death by doctors was syphilis. At this point, some women were leaving the companies because they were laid off. When the demand for military watches went down, they just didn't need as many painters. Well, some women were leaving now because they were noticing just how exhausted they were from the job. And at the time, they just thought, well, It was getting harder to ignore at that point because more women were complaining of very similar symptoms as Amelia. It usually always started with their teeth, and then stiffness and pain that would lead to difficulty walking because their legs and their spinal bones were being eaten away from the radiation. Their arms were getting more difficult to lift. They would just be completely exhausted without cause. They were losing extreme amounts of weight. They were developing skin cancers and giant tumors. Some of them were developing cataracts in their 20s. They were losing their hair. Their teeth would start falling out. They were losing inches in their height because their leg bones were being crushed and disintegrated. And some of them were experiencing the same things as Amelia. Their jaws were disintegrating. But because radium was still considered this incredible miracle cure, no blame was being put on the factories, and they were being diagnosed with other insane things like syphilis. However, the fact that all of these women were suffering horrendously and all of them had worked for the USRC, that was making it a little hard to ignore. So questions would be raised once again by the dentists and the doctors who saw these women, and they wondered, does the radium paint contain phosphorus? Because that really made the most sense, which was incorrect. just went and paid for another study, a completely biased study done by scientists that worked for them or they paid off, and they just made certain that the results of that study said that of course radium is safe. In fact, radium is good for you when you ingest it. As the case got more and more news coverage, radium sales in the public started declining because people were now becoming afraid of it, with good reason. So the company was definitely getting pretty rattled at that point. It was in 1925 when pathologist Harrison Martland got involved in the case and actually proved to everybody how dangerous the radium paint who was